The curtain that rises to the stage. Silly games of second guessing. I won't forget the lessons that I don't deserve. Because one street over there's a life I could have known. Would have kept me from the one I love today. One street over there's a life I could have known. Things aren't all.
Hi, this is
Hello. This is 1100 WSG. I'm U-Turn LaVern, and yes, this is one street over. What's going on, y'all? One street over from where you living. We are living right because we get to live and work in Davidson, or did I just say Davidson County? Good land, Robertson County. It's a Monday. Talking to my friend Bill Jones. He's here in the house, and we're both just trying to kind of get our gears going. It's Monday, y'all. Welcome to it again, 1100 WSGI. In case you didn't catch me on the front side of it, I think we got everything running now. I think all the streams are running. YouTube, Facebook, and of course the terrestrial signal right here that covers the county.
Yep.
You know, people ask me all the time. Bill Jones is our local historian. People always ask him, and they said, what kind of coverage do you have? And I said, well, you know, we have all these streams that we do, and but we have a terrestrial signal that covers Robertson County. And in the edges, wouldn't you say we kind of go into the edges of the surrounding counties? I think Paul Rainey is always on here with us. And Paul, don't we get into Sumner with the 1100 AM? I think he can hear us sometimes because we've had technical problems before. And he has told me he's been able to tune it in some. So I'm curious, Paul, if you can tune in 1100 AM up there in Sumner County, because he's like on the edge. He's like in Gallatin, you know, like right at the edge of Gallatin, Hendersonville, right there where they come together. So I kind of think he says he can sometimes, but
depends on conditions, solar conditions, and different kinds of weather stuff. So
when the weather's clear is when that signal goes, right?
The solar activity probably affects it more than anything.
Really? Okay. Interesting. Well, Bill Jones is here. This is History Monday. Our second Monday is always something about history. And if you've been missing it, great articles that Bill's been putting in the connection. Paul says he can hear it when it rains. Isn't that funny?
That's different.
That's different. That's interesting, Paul. So you just never know. But we've been talking about the history, and Bill's been putting these articles in the connection, and I have to thank the connection for the nice little write up for our Greenbrier Lady Cats that they put an article out for them because they'd won like their last 5 games last week, and so they put an article in the paper. Our new coach, you know, she's doing great.
I saw that.
Yeah, we were so tickled to see that, and our girls just so excited. Thank you, Connection, and thank you for publishing my friend here, Bill Jones. And what was your last article you were telling me? What was the last article?
The one last week was about an event that happened at the Springfield Police Department around 1957, 58. And I was sort of there. I was uptown, but I didn't know this was going on. And do you want me to talk about it, tell you about it?
Yeah, I think let's go ahead. Let's talk about it and kind of, you know, that way people can go and get that article and read it if they've missed it or, you know, just catch up a little bit.
Well, this was an event. There was a guy that was had too much to drink, and they arrested him in town. Now, the police department and fire department were next to each other on 7th Avenue as a parking lot there now. But back then, there was that building, and then up toward Main Street was Grower Supply. They had farm services. But anyway, back then, there was not but 3 policemen. And
this was 50s, you said?
57, 58. Okay. Somewhere in there.
Okay.
And so they had arrested this town drunk, sort of, I guess he was.
Otis Campbell. Sort of.
Sort of like that.
Okay.
But he was sort of wild and woolly, you know, very agitated. And they didn't have a jail cell like the county did. And the county were down on the corner of 5th Avenue going down the hill. Old building built in late 1800s. They had the cells that were proper, but at Springfield Police Department, they only had a couple of cells, and they were meant to just hold somebody temporarily until somebody could get them from the sheriff department. So it was sort of like heavy-duty chicken wire.
Oh my.
And previously, before they arrested this guy, they arrested a woman. Now, I don't know why or what, but they didn't have any facilities for her, so they put her back in a closet at the end of the hallway, next to the cells. And she was, of course, cutting up and hollering and carrying on. So
Oh goodness.
there was
Imagine.
one officer was at the desk, and another two had walked up to Main Street because there was a fire at a little restaurant there. And it was down a couple of doors down from Capitol Theater. It was called Little Chef Restaurant. And Johnny Holland was the man who ran that, I remember. But anyway, the fire was there. The fire trucks had gone out to go up there just around the block. And so the two police officers were up there at the fire. So just left one officer in the police station. And this man was raising Cain and everything, and he tore open that heavy-duty chicken wire, I call it. I don't know what you call it, but it's not bars. He tore it open at the top, and he climbed up that wire and got out. Well, somehow he got a stick, and he was beating on that door where the woman was, and got in, and he was attacking her. So the officer at the desk heard it, so he goes up from his desk around the corner to the left, and he pulls the man with a stick off of her. So she gets away, and she runs out the door and runs uptown screaming and hollering, and down South Main. And the police officer didn't know what was going on, but they knew she was there. But here she's running down the street screaming, throwing her hands up. So they thought, well, something's going on up the police station. So they turn around and run back up to on 7th Avenue, and this guy had a stick, and that broke out of the cell, and he was breaking windows with it and hitting everything, and he started looking for a gun. There wasn't a gun there, and so even the police officer didn't have a gun. Sort of like Barney Fife.
I was going to say
at least he had one bullet.
This sounds more and more like Mayberry all the time.
He didn't have one, so he gets up. He's fighting this guy, so he runs out the door and holds the door so he can't come out. Mm-hmm. And the man was mad. He started beating the windows out and all. He was looking for a gun also. He was around the desk looking and everywhere. About that time, the two officers that were uptown arrived. And so the officer standing I won't use names. I know the names of all of them. I won't do that. But the officer holding the door, they asked him, said, what's going on? And said, well, so-and-so. He had a name too, and I won't tell it too soon. And he is broke out, and he's got a stick, and he's tearing up the window. They had a little window to the radio room in there, and he was breaking those out. So one officer that came running up, he said, well, shoot him. And the other officer says, I don't have a gun. So the other officer handed him his gun, a .32 revolver. Goodness. And he said, I don't want to shoot him. You shoot him. So they open the door. He comes out, and they shoot him once in each leg.
Oh, my goodness.
So about that time, they called the sheriff's department. And the sheriff's department arrived with two men. It took three men to get the guy in a sheriff's department car to take him to the hospital, which was Jesse Holman Jones, which is just opened. It opened in 57, I think. So he may have been one of the first patients, but they had to get him in, man shot in both legs. I don't see how he was doing it.
Well, yeah, you think. But
So anyway, they got him down to jail. And, of course, the news made headline. I was talking to the sheriff the other day. He said, I've heard that story somewhere. And I said, yeah, it was a long-standing story for Springfield. And people, there's a picture of the fire truck and some of the police officers standing outside the building there now. I've got it. But if you're wanting one, I guess the archives, not the archives, but the museum will have one. And I've seen the same picture in different offices in town that are lawyers and things like that. So a lot of these old pictures are around. You just got to go get them.
know where to go to find them.
Then the sheriff was asking, I saw him when I was eating lunch the other day, and he asked me, he said, well, he asked me what I was writing about. I told him that story.
You're talking about Sheriff Van Dyke.
Yeah, Van Dyke.
Our current sheriff.
Yeah. So I said, you're not going to be free of it because I'm writing about you the next week.
Oh, no.
Not you, but the sheriff's department.
Yeah.
So I didn't tell him what that was, but
Yeah. This was city police that that had the incident where they shot the guy in the legs.
Now today, well, not today, tomorrow, my next article in the paper will be about an event at the sheriff's department. Now, through history, there's been a lot of things that's going on there. Like I remember way back, they had raided a still or something, and it had a whole lot of whiskey and drugs, and so they took the whiskey as evidence, and so they stored it in the basement of the sheriff department building.
Like
so when they go to court, they were all empty.
Oh.
But anyway, this next story happened in 1957, and there were break-ins all over the city, and they all happened at night, and they were burglarized. There would be cigarette machines broken into. Winko's restaurant, which was down on Memorial Boulevard in front of Stuart Williams now, they had to break in. Pearson's service station, which is going south where Batts Boulevard splits off from 431 there, that was Jerry Pearson's father ran a service station there. And that place, a couple of other restaurants that are around town on 10th Avenue and some others, and then some homes were broken into at night. And they didn't have a clue who was doing it. I can't, a lot of times when burglars are doing something, they'll have a partner and somebody will tell something and they catch them. But this time they didn't have any information at all. So one night, the Davidson County Sheriff calls our local sheriff, and he says, we have raided a hotel room called Carver Hotel, which is out on Charlotte, off of Charlotte, and we found merchandise that came from Downey and Jones jewelry store, which was, I don't know if you remember that, but
I remember that name, but
it was on the east side of the square.
Right.
And it was a small area, and they found all this jewelry and watches and all kinds of stuff, and it still had tags on it from Downey and Jones. So sheriff says, really, do you know who it is? He said, yeah. And Robert Leon Benson, yeah. And, well, no, it can't be him. I said, why? I said, we have him locked up in jail here. He said, you want us to bring it down there and all the stolen merchandise? I said, we pretty well got all of it. He said, yes. So the sheriff sent a deputy down with the prisoner to the jail in Springfield. And lo and behold, it was Robert Leon Benson. And the sheriff runs back to the cells to see who's in there. He wasn't there. And so he confessed to everything. And what he was doing, he was a trustee, worked in the kitchen. And at night, he somehow got a key to get out. And at night, he would get out, do the burglaries, come back in, let himself back in. And by the morning, he's there. So that was going on so much. He had about $90,000 in today's value of merchandise. Now that was, I think, $8,000 then, but today it would be, it was a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
Then. So they interrogated him. I've got a picture of the sheriff and the police chief and two deputies, I think, all around a big table, and Robert Leon Benson is sitting there, and all this stuff is spread out. And he confessed to everything except who gave him the key. And the sheriff says, well, I will get to the bottom of this, I guarantee you. He never did. He wouldn't ever tell where the key came from, how he got it. And I think he went before the judge, and they gave him 6 more months in jail.
I'm surprised he didn't get more than that.
I know, that's what I thought,
you
too.
would think that would get more would come with that.
But the funny thing to me is, I talked to somebody that knew him, and they said he became a Baptist preacher in Nashville. He was
Redemption's
25.
real.
He was 25 years old then, so I imagine he is not around anymore.
Yeah.
He'd probably be about 100, So
Yeah.
anyway, that's so many things that
That's
happen
hysterical.
with police and with sheriff's departments, and they've had escapes, but it's just it's really interesting to follow the sheriff's department and all goes. I remember one at where they're at now. A guy escaped. I don't know how in the world he did that, but he was up on the roof somehow, and they caught him uptown, going down Main Street. But that's just one of the many things I think is interesting about Robinson County, and I'm going to be writing. I've already written articles into February, so I have to think ahead, because maybe I got sick the other day, had a little mini stroke, and
See,
I'm
now you
glad I
didn't
had-
tell me that. Really? Bill sits
Well-
down. I'm like, how are you doing? Oh, I've been better. He never mentioned that. Well, God bless you.
Well,
I
it
had
was
no
strange.
idea. Yeah.
I was at a restaurant talking to a guy I went to high school with, and all of a sudden, what I was saying was just gibberish. And I turned around and looked at my wife. I said, "Whoa!" And I turned around and started again. Blah, 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 I thought something's wrong here. So we left, and we didn't know what to do here. So I
Right.
was feeling real weak and almost passing out. We went to we were always going home. We stopped at the drugstore south side, and Kim Bibb is up there, and I've known her all my life, and she was standing there asking me questions, and I have a real simple question. I said, I don't know what you're talking about, like that, and she looked at my wife and said, you need to get him in the emergency room. So I went and spent 2 days in the hospital, ran every test that insurance would pay for. And then they sent me to another doctor at Skyline, which was a joke, I thought. Then they sent me back to my heart doctor, which I usually have, and I had to go to Hendersonville to see him because I need to go soon. And that's Tracy McAllister, Dr. Callister. And he looked at it, he said, all you've had, you don't have any, from what the test I see, you don't have anything going on in your head. But I mean, there's no blockages, no
Right.
nothing. And he said, probably you've got a drug mix up with your blood pressure medicine. And I said, I sort of thought that. He said, it's just thick. Your blood is thick, and it slowed you down, at that moment that you had that little thing. He said, that doesn't mean you're going to have several more, but you just we'll adjust your medication. So he did that, and it seemed to be okay now.
Yeah. God
But-
bless you. We'll be praying for you, brother.
Well,
Pretty fond of you.
I don't know whether it's just normal aging or that event, but seems like I can't handle things like I'm studying. I study Bible constantly, hours a day, and history, and seems like I have to go over things. It's like reading a book, and you go, "What did I just read?" And
Yeah.
you got to go back and read it again. That type of
That
thing.
focus and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but anyway, that's what's going on with me.
Well, we will keep praying that you stay well and all those things, and
Then-
glad that you're doing okay now.
For the next several weeks, I'll be talking in the articles in the Robinson County Connection about recalling old times in Springfield. And I've got some interesting stuff that people may not know about. Now, if you lived here all your life, you probably heard of some of it. But the reason I'm keeping on doing this, which I'm 81, be 82 here in a few months, I'd like to help people that's moving into the area, because there's people coming in from Oregon and California and Illinois and New York, and just people. There's a little subdivision behind me. It's just been built. It looks like a city with the lights and everything down there. But and my next door neighbor's from Oregon, and I wrote an article about grubbing hose. He didn't know what that was. I thought everybody that's ever lived around here that had a garden had a
Yeah.
grubbing hoe.
Yeah, we've
But
talked
anyway,
about that.
that
Yeah.
made me realize these people coming in here don't know all our history, and we're rich in history. A lot of things. I mean, I could write one every day for a year and not cover it all. But I thought that would be something I could do to help people that are moving in here, they don't know anything about our area, about our county, or about our history. And if they'll just read these little short articles I write, and some of them are funny and some of them are not, it'll give them some idea of where they're located, because this Robeson County is different. Could I have one of those?
You sure can.
Thank you.
The Hall's cough drops.
Robertson County, when you start looking into it, you go, wow, this place really is different. It's different than other places. And I was studying about, for instance, the town clock, and I was reading up on it, and I thought, we're probably, Dixon County has the oldest courthouse. And I thought, no, ours is was built 10 years before theirs. But what they're judging that on, that the brick and all stays the same. Well, ours changed because it started out red brick, and then they add a section on each end. Our first courthouse built of brick was just 44 feet long on each side. That's not very long. And ours has been added on and changed. I remember reading the last big change when they put the clock on the courthouse in 1929. They put concrete steps on the north side. Almost, it wasn't there before. And they built all these concrete steps. And so the courthouse is really unique to what we have, and the clock especially.
Oh, yeah.
And at first, when they put clocks on courthouses, they had to wind them once a week. And they'd have a big crank or chain they'd pull. And about 30 years ago, they changed that to motors. I was talking to Jim Ball about it. He's expert on this
Smoky
stuff.
Barnes.
Smoky Barnes. And he was talking about how complicated it is. They're very complicated. And they have people, horologists, HOLOROGIST, that work on clocks. And I'm sure there's people around in Nashville that can do it, and you'd have to pay them a pretty good amount because there's not many people that knows that.
And you mentioned Jim because Jim's worked on the clock. He's one of the last ones to work on the clock. That's something that really surprised me that Smoky Barnes worked on her clock. But
He's a very smart guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so, well, that's interesting. In that article, when will that be out about the clock? Is that, you said that's in February?
I'm working on it. It'll be in February sometime.
Okay. Okay.
I've
That'd
already
be
got
interesting.
several other going on. I was reading an old newspaper. I have a newspaper from 1819. And there was a man called Thomas Johnson. He's my fourth great uncle. And he was a surveyor, and he laid out the lots in Springfield. So they had a little, small little log cabin as a courthouse then. And he was the first county court clerk they had too. But they decided in 1819 they needed a brick building. So he put out a bid, and I think somebody in Nashville got it or something like that, and they built our first courthouse. Didn't have a clock. Then they had a remodeling in 1879, which they added on 2 other sections to it, made the courthouse bigger, and no clock, no tower. Then in 1929, I remember Howard Bradley telling me his father worked on the courthouse in 1929 and remodeling it. And they put a clock up there. And they had men come in from, I may have been another country, come in and do the stonework and put the clock, the bell up there. And I got to thinking lately, why? And how many, I was trying to research, see how many towns in Tennessee have clock towers. And nobody knows. They just hadn't had a reason to go count them, I guess. But I got thinking back, like I do biblical research. I think about trying to put myself in their shoes and walking around in that time, what they had available and what they didn't have. And in that time, back in the 1800s, there wasn't electricity, so you had to be mechanical. They didn't have wristwatches. They had some pocket watches in the late 1800s, but they weren't accurate. And people around town didn't have telephones back in the 1800s, no lights. So to come to work, they had to hear the clock. The clock was the thing that synchronized the whole town. And the bigger the clock, usually the more wealthy the town was. So it was a thing that showed out, how much they thought of the town, how much was activity. Because Springfield was very, West End was maybe that end of town stopped around Garner Street at one time. And then it moved out to the high school area, Springfield High School, and then West End later went out to the railroad trestle, and right on past it there was a little circle drive around. It's called West End Subdivision. It's not, but probably 10 houses there. Then considered it behind CEMC. So West End has moved out. It's now gone. Consider West End out where the radio station is here now. But when the town was small, they needed to hear something to tell them when they need to go to work, when dinner is. You think people working out in the field didn't have a wristwatch. So they had these bells on the farm, a big bell, and they'd ring to come in for lunch. They had no idea what time it was.
Right.
They just had to keep their own time. And with the clock, and some bells went off just on the hour, some on the half hour, some on even quarter hours, which everybody followed. And later, we had, well, I tell you what, when they had the first fire department, they had a bell. They would ring, and everybody in town could hear it, and volunteers would come and get the fire engine out. Wasn't a fire truck at first. And the bell was really important. And some towns had different tones of bells to indicate certain things. And even the churches, had a lot of spires you see in churches had bells in them initially. So they would start ringing the bell at church time. And later that turned into, they put PA systems in there. Springfield Baptist Church had one, and you could hear it all over town, the music on Sunday morning. Well, a lot of people objected to that, so they stopped that. So funny how life goes. And all these bells meant something. And I remember the sounds like that. The high school had a siren. And I remember it as a kid because I lived near it. And they would practice turning that siren on and off because they were afraid of a war, because this was right after World War II, Korea. And so they had this siren they activated every week just about.
A test, yeah.
And then the woolen mill.
Tornado towers,
I can remember the woolen mill too. Now it's on the north side of town, and it had a siren or just a tone, to let people know when to come to work and when to get off to work. So people in town knew if they heard this certain sound, this was going to happen. And so the bells in the courthouse were real important, and in every town, because it set the tone or set the time, because people they had mantle clocks, but they weren't that accurate. Of course, if they're working outside, the mantle clock does no good. But it was really important to have that bell in the clock tower. Now, some towns have a clock that's not on the courthouse, it's on a municipal building or on something. So, but the clock was important. It's just not up there just for show. But the town, Robinson County was a very wealthy county back in the late 1800s, early 1900s because of tobacco.
And whiskey.
And whiskey before that. So, but, it's just, it's interesting. If you think back and put yourself in their position, they had no radio. But I can remember at my grandmother's house, it was out on a Darrellville highway about 3 miles out, when we lived there when I was a little boy. And she had a radio on the mantle over the sink, and they would listen to the Don McNeil Hour in the morning. And there were shows like that on radio. It was, radio developed really big in the 30s. Even the furniture stores were selling radios. And that's all we had. Yeah. Then news, believe it or not, was passed mostly at church because somebody.
Well, in theaters too. You'd go to the movie and they'd have
and that newsreel, cartoons. I like the cartoons. But back in the middle 1800s, news traveled from church to church because you'd have a group of people there. And that's why they went to church. A lot of them did just to get the news. But you'd have a group of people there, and somebody came from Kentucky down and told them about the plans for the Civil War and things like that. So the churches were real important because they carried the news from one place to another, and it was weekly. They would, whatever Instead, here, someone would carry it to Oklahoma or something, and tell them. So these organizations like that, we all, and I don't know how I got off on that from clocks, but clocks had to do with.
Well, it's about informing, keeping people up to date on the
Right.
time and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, we
And-
have today our information.
yeah,
How do
for
we get
sure.
it today?
Yeah.
You know.
But you were talking about the bells and stuff. As soon as you start mentioning bells, I have a farm bell.
Yeah.
That's on my place that my father bought for me somewhere on Old Hickory Boulevard up in the Ashland City area at some kind of a yard sale that was out there, and it's an antique. And he really wanted us to have a farm bell because we always had been told that the farm bell was not just to call you in for dinner, is if you had an emergency, that is how you let people know about it. And I tell the story, my sister, and we actually have the farm bell that was on my grandparents' farm, on the farm up in Kentucky. But the one I have, again, just is from this area. And
Everybody
that's
had 'em,
Yeah, everybody had them. And my sister, we had always heard that story about an emergency. Well, my sister, God bless her, she passed away several years ago. But she came home one day. This is when she was in Kansas City, living up in Kansas City. Came home to find her husband had passed. And she was just overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And she didn't know what to do. I mean, this is like middle of the day on a Saturday, I think. And she comes home. He'd had a heart attack. And she comes out and she just didn't know what to do. And she gets in her car and just lays on the horn. And at that, we asked her later, why'd you do that? And she goes, well, I remember what Mama and Papa told me about ringing the bell when you needed help. Because she just couldn't gather
Bell
herself
was really
to
important.
call or anything.
Yeah.
And I think about that so often when we start talking about bells, is how that reminded my sister, just make a noise to get some help. And that's how they did it back then. Like you said, they'd call the volunteers to the fire department and those types of things. And so the bells, I think that's a fascinating thing talking about. The fact that we were such a wealthy county because of all the tobacco and whiskey and all of that. They wanted to make sure they had a proper bell and a proper tower and a proper clock to keep everybody on time.
What about Mayfield? Did they have a
Oh yeah,
bell
iconic.
on
That's we had the
courthouse?
oh yes. Now, did we have a bell? I'm sure we did. We had the clock tower. I'd have to go back and look to make sure we had the bell. I'm assuming we had the bell. But I mean, I can look real quick because I've got
I mentioned
images.
that because you're from Mayfield, Kentucky.
Yeah,
so.
and we had you mentioned red brick. Ours was red brick, our courthouse, and it was in movies. I've said it many times. One of the reasons why I was so drawn to, Springfield and Romulus County is because the county seat, the square, was much like ours. And this is, let's see, here's our. I don't know that there's a bell up in there, but we had a tower. That's
Yeah, you got a clock.
Yeah, we got a clock.
Yeah.
But and I mean you can't see it, but after the tornado, the whole top half was off of that. And I don't know if you can see that there. People ask me about it, so I kind of keep a pick handy. But that was in several movies, and of course this is after the tornado. It's gone.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, that's after the tornado. But
Did it wipe the
And-
courthouse out?
it took the top half of it. I'll show you.
Okay.
That's what it did.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it took the tower, and I don't know if any of y'all can see these things on my phone if I'm showing you, but you can see it took the very
Well, you
top
can
half.
imagine how important
Yeah.
bells were
Yeah,
back
that's
then.
how you see how beautiful
Oh, yeah.
it was spectacularly beautiful, and it still just breaks our heart for it to be gone. But time marches on.
Robertson County now, their courthouse, we're on a hill. You know, the courthouse was and the bell up there, so it could be heard all over the place.
Yeah.
So everybody depended on the courthouse bell
Mm-hmm.
to be accurate and references, and it was prestigious.
Yeah, very much.
1929, which was the Depression, the Great Depression, putting a bell up was something. I mean, it was a big, big deal. to
Now,
do.
I don't know when we got our clock tower and all that. I'd have to see. I'm sure there's some history of Mayfield, but it's very similar, very similar. And I'm sure that in the day we were a pretty wealthy area too because of the farming, because we were a big tobacco producer.
Well, there you
And I
have.
don't know about the I don't know that we did distilling, but we were a huge tobacco producer.
Well, the farms had a bell, the churches had a bell,
yeah.
the schools had a bell, the county has a bell. We were all around bells for
Yeah.
our timing.
Yeah.
because we didn't have watches, but they did have sundials. But on a sunny day, well, on a cloudy day, you didn't know what
Be a
time
little
it
bit
was.
hard, you know.
They also had water clocks there. I can't even pronounce the name of that thing, but where water would go out one way and then another, and you could tell sort of about what time it was.
It's really fascinating, and this is not that long ago. That's the thing I get in with my kiddos, and I talk about. We're getting ready to do a. We had a video competition between our audio video program and Springfield's audio video program. We won, but Greenbrier won. But our program's older than theirs and all. I mean, we've been around a little bit longer, so they're still kind of getting their gears together. But we're getting ready for another contest with them, and it is going to be an audio drama. Like and I'm like, and everybody's like, oh, it's just like podcasts. I'm like, yeah, it's just like old radio. Yeah. It's just like the radio that we had in the beginning. Just look at War of the Worlds, with Orson Welles and all of that. But it's fascinating. I got to do an ad. We'll run out of time so quick. It's already 22, Bill. Bill's like, oh, I'm not prepared. And I said, we won't have any problem finding something to talk about, Bill. But especially with you doing these articles, because it's so fascinating to get the backstory on those. But Paul Rainey wants to know, and I want to know, and thank you, Paul. So be thinking about how you're going to answer this, and I'm going to do my ad for the Rich, Barry and Rebecca. But you did a thing on Facebook, and you had Saddam Hussein's gun.
At what now?
Saddam Hussein's gun.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, we got to hear this story, so we got to hear this. I am so glad you reminded me, Paul, because I wanted to ask him that myself. Before we get to that, let's talk Barry and Rebecca Richards with Exit Prime Realty. I always talk about how they buy and sell in the surrounding counties and across the state line in Kentucky. Got great examples of both of those. This is Barry and Rebecca Richards, Exit Prime Realty. They have their own Facebook pages. They have their own websites because Rebecca reminds me, while they're part of Exit Prime Realty, a new branch in the Exit tree, they compete against each other. And I think that's quite funny. He's a broker here in town in Springfield, and she is an agent up in the White House office, and her broker's actually different than him. So it's just very interesting to hear them talk. But on Rebecca's Facebook page, she is featuring a home in Kentucky, Adolphus, Kentucky. I don't know how far that is from here, but this is a beautiful home, and it is one with no down payment and financing through the USDA Rural Development. And so what a great deal. And I don't know if there's some land that goes along with this, but it's out in the rural area. It's got 4 beds, 3 baths, a great opportunity for somebody that was wanting to get into a home that can't really this is, your first home. A great opportunity to do that to where you won't be paying rent and losing that money. And again, the income tax went down in Kentucky. So that's another little incentive that you need to be thinking about. But Rebecca has one of those homes featured that they sell up in the Kentucky area on her Facebook page. So go and check it out. Now, in Barry's, I always talk about how that they specialize in Robertson County properties because they're Robertson Countyans. They're in Cross Plains. They've been there for 30 years, but they also buy and sell in the surrounding counties across the state line in Kentucky. Well, in the surrounding counties, he has got a home that they started showing yesterday, and it is a historic home that's had a lot of renovations done to it. Very thoughtful renovations, walking distance to all the things that East Nashville has to offer. It's up in Davidson County. Man, it's a cool house. It is a super cool house. It's got solar panels up on the roof. It's got a great back porch and a balcony, and the interior is just so cool. I mean, they did a beautiful job on the renovations of this home, but it is in the historic district. It's a historic home. So you can check that out on his social media Facebook page. Started showing it yesterday, so if you want to take a look at this one, you better get on it because I think it will go quick. It is a really cute house, and fireplace with wood stove, all kinds of just wonderful features, and again, solar panels on one side of the roof, so you're going to have that help too. So if you want to check them out, go to Barry Richards, Exit Prime Realty, Rebecca Richards, Exit Prime Realty. Give them a Google search, and you'll find all the things, Facebook page, web page, and our longest-running full-time sponsor here at One Street Over. And when you talk to them, please let them know always that U-Turn sent you. All right, Bill, explain, please.
Okay.
How did you end up with Saddam Hussein's gun?
Right after the Iraq War, I'm a member of the TFA, Tennessee Firearms Association, and we had a meeting.
And they're meeting tonight.
Yeah, we were meeting at the Catfish House at that time, which is no longer here. And one of our speakers was this man, and I don't remember his name. He was involved in when they found Saddam in that pit, he was in. and he had that gun, and this guy got it, and he brought it in, and he was going around giving talks about what was going on there, and he let me hold the gun. So I was sitting there, I took my picture, I got a couple of pictures of it, and then somebody said to me, he said, that can't be right. It can't be silver, and you couldn't have had his gun because President, what's his name? Well, anyway, the president was the, who?
President Bush
Yeah,
at the time, because he was
senior.
President Bush was in
No, junior,
office.
I guess.
Or no,
Junior.
was he? Was it President? Who was in office when he was captured? I guess it was Bush.
Somewhere in there. I remember.
I forget.
Anyway.
Anyway, yeah.
Somebody said, well, that can't be real, and they sort of made fun of it, and I said, well, I can't prove anything because I was just at the meeting, and he was telling us all about it and showing us the gun.
It's like, well,
It didn't look
that's what he
silver plated to me. It looked like real silver.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert. I don't know, but I did do a little looking up on it, and they, after this period of time, right after that was when they presented it to the president. Then
Okay.
to put in display somewhere. I don't remember where, but it was real. I believe it was real. And the guy was going around, he was telling all the details, which I thought was pretty impressive, how they did that, what they found with him. I think he had a little food and I don't know, a few other little things with him, but to find a man like that in a hole in the ground, it was pretty good to do. They couldn't, I won't know if I could have done that.
Well, and it was during George Bush
Junior? I mean, not
Junior.
Yeah, I don't know the difference in their initials there.
Yeah, for sure. So, but it was George W. that was in office whenever that, and I was thinking it was, but I wasn't sure.
Okay.
But nonetheless,
Anyway, these things cause people to get in arguments, and
I know.
I don't
And
do
it's
that.
like, but that's why you had it. I figured it was something like that you had a picture in your archives that you had.
No, it's just a picture I took of myself.
Right.
We were at the catfish
Well,
house.
that's your archive. Since you have it, you have your own personal archive.
I got a lot of archive.
So very good. But so that's the answer. And you mentioned Tennessee Firearms Association. Their meeting, the day that Bill's in here is always when they have their meetings, and they meet up here at the American Legion Post. And we're going to have 2A Sisters will be speaking tonight. They're a great group. They've been in here. So you can join them for the potluck starting at 6. So bring something good to eat. And then they'll start the program at 6:30. But they meet at the American Legion Post 45 up in Greenbrier. I can't miss it, though. Oh, have you seen all the beautiful mural, the painting?
Yeah, I met the guy.
Wow.
One night we were there,
job.
and he was there and he sells those things, but he has a whole lot of stuff he's done, and beautiful. He's really good.
I want to do a mural on my barn, and I don't even know how to start. I mean,
Rock City.
No, I'm wanting to do something different. I want something unique.
Yeah.
Trying to really develop my place into a place where I take pics, do photography. And I did that for a while, and then when Mother got sick and passed, I had to set it aside for a little bit, getting ready to reignite that. And I've got this long wall, and I want it to be a display of Tennessee wildflowers, something just beautiful and unique.
Yeah.
And then on one end of my dairy barn, I want to do a daffodil mural, because I've got a book called "Don't Forget the Daffodils" that I'm going to relaunch. And so I'm trying to cross marketing and all of this kind of stuff, trying to bring all these things together. Let
me tell you something I could use as historical. Here in Tennessee, there's a flower, and it grows in the field in front of my house, called, it came from England. It's very rare. The town it came from no longer exists. Deadford Pink, that's the name of it.
Pink, okay.
And it's a little pink flower, a pretty little flower. And birds, somehow they migrate this stuff all over the place. And now my ex-wife, who died several years ago, she was she had a landscaping business, and that's it.
Okay.
Her main thing she knew about was wildflowers.
Okay.
And I had a lot of pictures, and I've gotten rid of now of them, but I have that in my field. I have some pictures on my phone I take. And in fact, I dug some up and took them around the back of my house and put them where I had some other plants. But Deadford pink is sort of rare, and it's my ex-wife was the one that brought them in here, and I see them all over. I'll go to Orland and saw some the other day because she planted them around different places in Robinson County. But anyway,
So are they considered a wildflower here now?
yeah.
Okay, interesting. And
But
they
they're
say it's
pretty little
common
flowers.
in the mountains. Scientific name. Okay.
But anyway, they're sort of semi-rare, I would guess. I don't know. I haven't done a study on it, but it would be something unique that you just don't see anywhere. And
I'll have
that
to
would
make
be
sure
one
and
to
include
consider.
That one. Well, yeah, and that is one of the things that I'm trying to do is get all the different collections, and I want to put them in just a
Yeah.
just a beautiful display. But here, I can do some artwork, but I'm not real great at it. And one reason why I don't have more books out is because illustrations have been my issue. And now that we can do it through AI, I may, be doing some stuff that way. But because I've got several children's books that I've kind of paused because I just haven't been happy with where I've gone with illustrations and stuff. And so I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but that's something else on that's something else I got cooking on the stove.
My ex-wife wrote a
trying to-
book, and it was called Jehoshaphat Was Not Fat.
Oh, cute.
It's a children's book.
Jehoshaphat was not fat. That's cute.
I hope I still have a copy. I don't know whether I do
You
or
need to
not.
republish that.
That was a long time ago,
Okay.
back in the
And this is your wife that passed away?
1900s. Yeah. She died a few years back. So,
Okay.
but she was always a wildflower person.
Interesting.
She taught classes to the class they had for master gardeners.
Oh,
She
fun.
taught them. She just was very educated in that realm. But anyway,
All right. We
one
digress.
little more
All right.
little thing about town clocks, and too, we ought to think about how it migrated up to where we are now. So town clocks was what kept people when to go to work and when to come home. But the town clock was put on courthouses mainly because they had a docket, and people needed to know, didn't have a watch, what time, when that thing strikes 9 o'clock, I need to be there at court case. And so that was one of the main reasons to put them on courthouse, because people in the courthouse and all around town, they need to know exactly what is it, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever, because we don't know. We don't have electricity and all that. So that was so important. But you bring it down to today, it's not important. It's just for prestige and looks. And the bigger, the more impressive. But now, what's replaced all this? Replaced wristwatches, Apple watches that ding and tell you to do this now and all that. I get tired of it talking to me. And
Turn off your
we have,
notifications.
our computers.
Yeah.
We have so many things that keep us on schedule and time, and you have no excuse for not being late because you didn't know the time.
Right.
So it has, it's sort of interesting to look at what we've migrated from the town clock that we didn't have one to go to work or come back, and sirens and bells, and we still have some that do certain things. And it's interesting how in history, we have moved on. And the big towns had all this stuff, little town didn't.
Well, and you mentioned that the things that we've had, and you mentioned this in something you said earlier. You were talking, you mentioned Capitol Theater because we were saying that used to be the source for your news, as you'd go in and you would see the news clips. So to change subjects a little bit, have you seen where they have put up a Facebook page for Capitol Theater? It's called Springfield Capitol Theater. It's a Facebook page that you can follow, and they have been requesting stories from the old Capitol Theater.
Well, I've got several.
Have you reached out to them at all?
No, I did. I think I wrote on there that I have a picture of Gene Autry upstairs, and I have a picture of another actress, and I can't remember her name. And they would come to town to promote. See, Capitol Theater was all over the Middle Tennessee. There was one company that owned them.
Right.
Princess Theater was another one that had multiple theaters.
I think we had a Princess in Paducah.
A
Princess Theater in Paducah. I think that's the one we had.
Well, these people promoting their movies, they would travel around Nashville, the main one, and then they'd reach out to Dixon and Springfield and Clarksville and Gallatin and all that, and they would get their picture made. I got one of Berlin Kleinert, who was the editor, owner of the Springfield Times and the Robeson County Times, and he's standing there with these people. And it's interesting that they used to do that, and they were very recognizable. And, my memory is not as hot as it used to be. I can't remember that actress's name, but I remember seeing her in a lot of movies. So that's interesting right there at that location.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'll tell you something else that I hate to tell. The upstairs was not allowed to have white people there, only black people. And when I was a kid, I wanted to go upstairs because I thought the balcony was neat. But they have
Seriously, and
if
it
you're
was
facing the
segregated.
theater, there's a door right on the right, and right to the right of the ticket office, and they would go in, the black people would go in, pay for their ticket right there, and go up the steps to the balcony. Balcony is where the bathrooms were too.
Yeah.
But not on the balcony, but area, and that's where those pictures I've got of the movie stars was up there. But that's sort of interesting, and also in the courthouse, if you'll go on the north side of the courthouse and look down the main floor, there's two little doors there, and back then, one was for white and one was for black, and you hate to see that
makes
stuff.
You sick.
But
Makes you sick,
again,
but it's part of
until
the
you
history.
realize how people thought back then, you don't understand why they came to the conclusions they had. But that's what I enjoy doing, is looking deep, researching deep into something and see, why did you think this way? Why did you do this? And I like doing that instead of just reading the surface historical.
Understand
why they got that.
how in the world they got there, because from such a religious, beautifully Christian area to ever feel like you had authority over somebody because of this color of their skin is just so heart-wrenching and heartbreaking. And it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago.
That's the thing.
And that's the sad thing, because I talked to so many people. I don't recall it. I'm 63, but folks of your generation, I remember. I can't remember the dentist's name that was in before Dr. Vichecker, before Dr. V took over Park Plaza Dentistry. Do you remember his name? And I'm just blank on it right now.
Dr. Lee?
Oh, no, I can't remember. Dr. Vichecker, Dr. V. Dr. V is what we call him.
Oh, I don't know.
But I'm trying to think what that gentleman's name is. Oh, Faquin, Dr. Faquin. He's from Memphis. And I just loved him. He's retired, and Dr. V bought the dentistry from him. But he was talking about being in Memphis as a kid, and there being days for the African Americans versus at the zoo, and he remembered that, and I thought, man, that's just horrifying. I can remember hearing when I was at Freed Hardeman. I think it was at Freed Hardeman. There was a sign that they had painted over that was the white person's water fountain versus the African American water fountain. Even there was also too, whenever Sean Elmore gave me a tour of the the tobacco building, that was like the place where they did the financials and stuff for tobacco.
Eastern Dark Fired Building.
That they have put the Open Door Pregnancy and Resource Center. There was a place in like the back part of the area before they did the renovations that she showed me, that she had been told that there was a sink in there. And she said, the reason they say the sink is here is because of the segregation of the races. And it's it just makes you sick when you realize it. And this is something that I tell people. When you talk to people in the African American community and you sense a little bit of anger, can you imagine how you would feel if your grandparents told you stories about this? Right. Would it not make you a little bit angry? Now, I say to my friends in the community, don't let that bitterness and that anger poison you, because it is a poison. Yeah. And so what's so interesting, a lot of the times their grandparents don't carry it, but then they carry it because then they get mad that it was ever done to their loved ones. But, it's just kind of a circle, and you just can't let that poison mess
Well,
with you.
it's a
And,
lot of things, and
yeah.
I see it in religion that people
Mm-hmm.
are mad or like certain things, and that you ask them why. And,
Mm.
I don't know. That's what I was
Yeah.
told when I was
What
a
I was
kid.
taught. Yeah.
I don't know why I believe that, or I
Right.
don't know why I feel
Right.
this anger.
Right.
And that's interesting how people do.
We'll take it. Yeah. But
And,
but it's by understanding our history that we get beyond these things and learn it, and also
well, that's the
properly
thing. You got to
report
move
it
on. You
Yeah.
just don't sit there and have
and waller
grudges.
in it.
And, you know,
But it's so interesting to talk with you, Bill, and I'm so glad had no idea you had a little illness, and glad you're doing okay, and you take care of yourself.
I
you
got to
know,
slow up on some things.
yeah.
I'm gradually moving out of
Mm-hmm.
certain things. I've done so much because I've just been really active. My wife
Mm-hmm.
keeps telling me, "You got to stop. You got to stop." And,
I don't want to. I know you're like
I
me.
know. I
It
don't.
wasn't that long ago that you were still owning the business and putting in flooring. You were responsible for the carpeting
Right.
that I have in my studio or in my classroom, and that's only been a few years ago. That was
But
one of the last
let me
things
tell
you
you
did, didn't it?
One other little thing
Okay,
I'm working on,
okay.
and I think everybody will like this. It's nicknames of areas in Springfield,
Oh yeah.
and one of them I'll tell you was Kirktown.
Where was that?
Hardly anybody knows where it was.
Why would you call it Kirktown?
I'll tell you an article. Then we had Shannondale was our first subdivision.
Okay.
It's out on
Okay.
the south part of town. We had Northtown, Southtown, Newtown. I've got a whole story on Newtown, how we got
Okay.
that name.
Okay.
Black Branch. Black Branch was water it ran along parallel with Memorial Highway. And that's where Springfield got its water way back.
Okay.
Eastland Heights, you know about that. But some of these people, a lot of people just moving here don't know about these areas. West Side, Indian Hills, Rose Hill, Black Patch, and Perry's Park.
So all these have nicknames and stories
I
behind them.
wrote two different week articles on them. We got two of them.
Fun. I will look. Well, we can talk about that next time you're in. How about that?
Yeah, I
For your
can,
next, yeah, we'll talk about that because he's in here on
It doesn't
second
come
Monday.
out till the end of January, I think.
Okay, well that'd be perfect. Then we can talk about that on your next visit here on the second Monday in February. Can you believe we're already here?
Now, let me
Oh,
say
my
one more
goodness.
thing. I get a lot of calls, and people want to know about certain things, and I know it's going to take a bunch of time for me to look it up and get it accurate and all, and I just don't have that time for,
For
6
everything.
people to call me to ask me things. I say, here's what you can do. Go look it up yourself. And of course, if I do it for them, I've spent a lot of time for nothing. And then, oh, that's nice, and they go on. You know,
And that's it. That's all.
I
They're
thought,
just curious. It was
here
a
I am
curiosity.
working like crazy, and
Yeah.
everybody involved in history does that.
Yeah.
And
But,
then we get into arguments of stuff about when something happened. And, it's a funny thing. Somebody will remember something and they will swear that it happened at that location and it didn't.
And it didn't. It's just something that they just perceived. Yeah, that's the thing. You got to investigate and make sure that you're accurate. Number one, and we are out of time, Bill. And this nickname thing, I'm going to go research one because Monkey's Eyebrow, Kentucky. Where in the world did that name come from? That one just popped into my head when you were talking. You don't happen to know, do you?
No, I don't
Okay,
know.
I'll look that one up. I'll meet you back here on the second Monday, and I'll come up with why
Great.
Monkey's out. I'll look that one up because when I think it was WPSD in Paducah would sign off when I was a kid,
Eyebrow.
the tower was located in Monkey's Eyebrow, Kentucky, and I've got to find out now. I'm going to go look that up. That's my
That stuff
job.
never ends. It just
Yeah,
never
there's
goes
so
on.
many of them. So if you come up with a weird name that you want to look up and share that with me on the socials, then we'll compare all those a month, the second Monday. And we're out of time now. It's 8:01. I got to go teach school. I got to go see my kiddos. And we were on WSM, by the way, on Friday with my kiddos. We went into the studio there, and Charlie and Kelly were in there and asked my kids some questions. And it was just so much fun. But anyway, thank y'all again, WSM. And thank you guys for joining us here on 1100 WSGI. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.